Morning, everybody. One of the things that I love about this state of North Carolina so much is the diversity that you get going from west to east. I mean, just last video we were in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, getting some mountain photography in the springtime, lush waterfalls, green rocks, everything. If you're interested in that video, I'll link that up there. And this week we are in the eastern reaches of the state, the eastern shoreline, Outer Banks, specifically Corolla. I used to say Corolla, but I was corrected many times from the locals here. It is actually Corolla. And I spent the week here on a work retreat, but also was able to get a lot of photos. This is a very photogenic place. Anyone who has been here would, I'm sure, agree with me on that statement. The sunrises here are absolutely incredible. And we're going to get into all of that and more in this video. This is basically going to be a photographer's guide to the Outer Banks from a photographer's perspective. I'm going to give you guys some tips, some tricks, some things to look out for that may hopefully help you capture some amazing pictures in this wonderful location. It's springtime here, a little breezy. It's been absolutely gorgeous weather. Even was able to shake off some rust with my drone, get some nice drone shots, and yeah, I'm just really happy with how the week has gone, and I think got some amazing pictures I'm excited to share with you, as well as some tips and tricks and kind of how I got them. And because I'm sure I'll forget at some point, I wrote some notes down on my phone because I'm sure I'll be referencing back to them at some point. So the Outer Banks, what are we talking about? Where is this actually located? This is located on the eastern shores of North Carolina. They are actually barrier islands right on the Atlantic Ocean. And they string from the northernmost point here in Corolla all the way south and southwest even to Ocracoke Island. You have to actually access that by a ferry apparently. And yes, it's about 175 miles of shoreline. And one of the things that a lot of people I think don't really understand before coming here, if you've never been here before, is just don't underestimate the amount of time it actually takes to drive certain places. A lot of these roads are only 35-mile-an-hour speed limits whenever you go through at small towns. They're down to 25, very twisty, and you really can't pass anybody the entire way. So despite it not looking like a lot of driving mileage-wise, it actually does take quite a fair amount of time to drive from one end to the other. So just be prepared, do your research, and make sure that you have ample time if you're trying to go chase a sunrise or a sunset. Just leave a little bit earlier than I think you're expecting. And speaking of those sunrises and sunsets, yes, this is one of the main attractions to here, especially the sunrises. We are pretty much the most eastern point in the United States, at least in the central US here, so the sun will come up quite a bit earlier than at least I was anticipating. I mean, here in May it's coming up right at about 5:50 in the morning, and even when you get towards June it's going to be coming up even earlier than that. So just be prepared, make sure that you get a well-rested sleep before, and be prepared to get up pretty dang early if you want to get those pre-sunrise colors. And especially when that sun comes up, it is beautiful. And also sunsets. Don't sleep on sunsets here. You can actually go to the sound side, just on the other side of the island, and you can really probably walk to it honestly from the beach, just because the way that these islands are, they're very narrow, long but narrow. You can easily walk across them in no time at all. I actually saw a sunset last night that was absolutely gorgeous. Man, that sun stayed up there for so long. It goes by the Lighthouse, I believe. And then as far as equipment goes, I would really recommend bringing a longer focal length lens, like a telephoto lens, to the beach, especially for sunrises. You can really zoom in and just get the sun as it's just peeking over the water, get some really cool shots with that. And speaking of telephoto lens, you can also use it for wildlife, the abundance of wildlife that is here in the Outer Banks. You'll see statues, pictures, and just references of wild horses everywhere, especially when you come up to the northern parts of the Outer Banks like Corolla here. And yes, they are a pretty big attraction. I actually, for the first time, saw them yesterday, which was a really cool experience. You can do it a couple of different ways. If you have your own vehicle that is 4x4 capable, and I stress that because you will be driving on a sandy beach, there's no road there. So if you want to access the horses in the reserve north of Corolla, you're going to have a vehicle with some ground clearance that's going to be able to handle the sand and kind of know what you're doing more or less, because trust me, you do not want to get stuck out there. But if you don't have that, you can walk it. All you have to do is just get to the very north of Corolla, pass through the gate, and then you can just walk until you find horses. Luckily yesterday they were only about a 20-minute walk from the entrance, so I was very thankful. The first time I tried to do it, I walked for, I swear, 2 hours and didn't come across. So it seemed to be a little hit and miss, but in general, follow the tour trucks if you're going to walk it. Those tour drivers, they know exactly where the horses are pretty much at all times, it seems. So if you follow them, you have a pretty good chance of seeing them. And if you want to see them in the tour trucks, pretty much they would all go there and completely turn around after only about a minute of stopping. So you're not going to be able to really get out and take some nice photos, set up a tripod or anything like that. So just be aware of that. If you want to get some really great photos, I would really recommend honestly walking it or just renting a 4x4 vehicle yourself and doing it that way. There's also lots of different boardwalks you can go on the sound side, and there's lots of like other creatures that you can spot. We saw some cool lizards and some frogs and various other reptiles. There's just so much wildlife on here, so definitely keep your eyes peeled. Bring a longer lens as to not get too close to the horses or any other wildlife as to disturb them. Lots of birds here you can get as well. Just the other day, wow, we got some amazing sunrises, and there's this huge flock of seagulls and other little birds that were just everywhere. I swear I counted like 50 birds in one frame at one point. It was insane. So definitely bring a longer lens. It's really going to allow you to get up close and personal with the nature that is here on the Outer Banks without, like I said earlier, disturbing them or intruding on their kind of natural space. And another big attraction here are the lighthouses. They're pretty iconic. One of the most iconic is Bodie Lighthouse. That's more towards the Nag's Head, Cape Hatteras area. I don't really know how to say that. Please don't butcher me. And yes, these can really make for great subjects in your photos, especially if you're using wide-angle photos or if you want to come here at night and try and capture some Milky Way photography. The whole Outer Banks has got to be up there with West Virginia in terms of having the best dark skies, at least on the East Coast. The West Coast, you guys got it really lucky out there. You got a lot of just open dark skies with like no light pollution, but here on the East Coast it can be kind of challenging to find some good areas for Milky Way photography, because if you're not talking about the mountains, pretty much everywhere else has some form of light pollution. But out here, especially if you go down to Ocracoke, there's zero light pollution. You get some absolutely stunning stars. So please, if you have one, bring a fast and wide lens. What I mean by that, something with generally about 20mm focal length or wider. Ideally like 15 would be great. And fast lens, I'm talking about a pretty fast aperture of like f2.8 or faster. Ideally something like f1.8. That's going to allow you to capture as much of the night sky as possible, and also it's going to be very bright, allow you to just capture as much light as possible for even longer exposure times. When I came here last year, there was absolutely perfect conditions for Milky Way photography. So there was no full moon, and it was in May, so the Milky Way was just starting to come and become a lot more visible in the northern hemisphere at least. Definitely need a tripod if you're trying to shoot Milky Ways for sure. Again, I would also suggest using those lighthouses. They really make a great kind of foreground object to sort of anchor the Milky Way and just have something else just besides like a night sky in your shot. And really the other big lighthouse is going to be the Currituck Lighthouse, which is just a few minutes up the road here in Kerala. While that one is not quite as iconic as the black and white one down in Nag's Head, it still is quite beautiful to look at. I went there last night, got some sunset shots, and I think that one could be also nice for night sky photography. Again, you just got to do your research, come at the right time, know when the moon phases out here are. And really the last thing that I can think of before I leave you here is going to be, please take care of your gear. There's so much, just as you can tell, sand everywhere. It's oftentimes very humid and muggy here. The salty air will just condense on your lens, especially if you're coming in and out from, let's say, a cold, dry house out into a moist kind of air like we have here and humid. Your lens will completely condense up right away, so just be careful with that. Again, salty air just wreaks havoc on camera lenses, especially when it's really humid out. So please take really good care of your gear. Wash out your tripod legs because they will get sand in it. That is just something that you're going to have to accept, that you will have sand everywhere in your gear. So please take special care with that just to make sure that you're keeping up with your gear. And it looks like that is about all the tips that I have written down. Is there anything else I can think of here before I let you go? Just have fun. It's great to visit here most seasons, I would say. I've been here in the spring a few times, and I think that's pretty ideal. The weather here can often be very consistent. Like, it has probably not gotten below 65 and not gotten above 80 since I've been here for about a week, which can be great. I mean, there's something to be said about beach weather. It kind of just puts everyone in a good mood. And also storms can be kind of an issue here from time to time, so just be careful, have your weather radar up. But you can get some really cool looking sky shots. And I'm going to leave you with this that we got over the beach house. It's probably one of my favorite photos that I have taken over this week-long trip. And before I show you guys that, I would just like to say thank you for taking time to watch this video. If you learned anything or found anything useful, please let me know about that in the comments down below, and maybe contribute to the conversation. If you have anything that you think is essential that anybody coming to visit the Outer Banks should know about if they're a photographer, please let us know about that in the comments down below. Let's get that conversation going. And yes, that's gonna be it for me. Some videos we got upcoming. Gonna be trying to go to the mountains of North Carolina, try and get these beautiful flowers that are going to be blooming here as we come into early June. Really excited about that. I did not capture that last year, so I'm really excited to see what I can do with that this year. But that's it for me. I'm going to leave you all with this photo, probably my favorite from the trip, like I said, and until I see you in the next video, peace.